Thanks so much for putting together this fantastic panel. One thing that struck me with several of the previous speakers has been something which I teach a lot as a historian of Latin America, which is the practical limitations that we run into on so-called Enlightenment universalism, rather. The idea that the benefits of the so-called Enlightenment will be rolled out to all of humanity. And yet, what we've seen over the last 7 months, and in fact, over many of the last decades, is that when it comes to things like freedom of association, freedom of speech, international law, um, ethical investment as well, that this is one rule for us and one rule for you. It's a set of values, a set of ideals that we apply when we deem it right for us, the powerful, and we certainly don't want to see those things rolled out to you, the less powerful. And it's become very clear in all of these discussions. And one thing that's been very striking about the student protests is that the students are doing exactly what the university rhetorically tells them to do. So I'll just read out a few words from the UCL mission statement, which is a diverse intellectual community engaged with the wider world and committed to changing it for the better, recognized for our radical and critical thinking and its widespread influence. Now, if going out an encampment and organizing rallies and talks and protesting against a genocide doesn't count as doing exactly that, then I don't know what does. So it's become very frustrating, if rather predictable, unfortunately, that university management, not just at UCL, this is something that is very much UK wide, and I'm not speaking for UCL here. I should make clear I'm speaking for myself as an individual. But the students have been holding rallies. They occupied the Jeremy Bentham Room for 34 days at UCL. They held a fantastic occupation there with loads of brilliant talks and workshops. They've been really drawing attention to the scholasticide that's been going on in Gaza with almost 8,000 students, 100 professors killed, and every university destroyed. And the other thing that's going on at UCL, in tandem with, though separately from the student encampments and movement, is that we have made the BDS campaign become much more prominent, and it's really taken off in the last few weeks. So we had our official launch for it last week. We now have 500 members of staff who have signed up to the 6 pledges. And I'm sure many of you are familiar with them, but just in case you're not, I'll run through them very quickly, which is not to work with complicit universities in Israel, not to do business with genocide complicit corporations, to support Palestinian universities and students, to stop the silencing of solidarity, to end investments in arms companies, and to support the wider BDS campaign. And the reason we're doing this is because primarily Palestinian organizations asked for this. They've been asking for it for a really long time, actually. But the urgency of what's going on now has really brought it into focus for a lot of people. Also, we know that it works. There was an article recently in Haaretz about that featured many comments from Israeli academics, and particularly from managers of academic institutions, saying, "Oh, we don't really know why, but people don't seem to be wanting to work with us at the moment." Now, there has been a kind of counter campaign against BDS, saying that BDS is boycotting Israeli academics as individuals, and it's important to make clear that that's not the case. It's an academic boycott against institutions. And then other people have mentioned the divestment side of it. It is very hard to get to the bottom of where universities invest their money. It takes a lot of freedom of information requests. University assured us, the community, that they checked with their ethical investors, and the ethical investors said that it was okay and that we weren't investing in anything bad. And I think they hoped that would put the matter to bed. But of course, that doesn't tell us anything, and there's all kinds of shell investments and sub investments that it's very hard to get to the bottom of. So we're going to keep pushing for that. We're going to keep pushing for BDS. There's going to be apparently an anti-BDS bill coming out, but it's unclear whether that's going to apply to universities because they're not direct parts of government. But what's become clear as well, and I think this again goes back to the point that several people have made, is that we are the university. Staff and students together are the university, and we can make a huge change. I know that in lots of places, the universities are run by people who have come from outside the sector to streamline it, to turn it into a commercial enterprise that churns out people who are skilled for work but don't necessarily want them to think very broadly. That's not the case. Both staff and students are on board with critical thinking, with activism, with challenging received wisdom, and we. I just like to assure people that we are really committed to making sure this works, and that the university is not complicit in a genocide. It sounds so simple and so facile to say that that is a demand, that we don't want the place where we work or study to be complicit in a genocide. It should be a given, but unfortunately it isn't. And so the situation in the UK, I think, is that many staff and students are, the vast majority actually, I think, are pushing for that not to be the case.